Good day, dear colleagues. I'm Konstantin Platonov from Center for Sociological and Internet Research. I want to introduce my co-author, Kirill Svetlov from Laboratory for Research and of Socio-Economic and Political Processes of Modern Society. Our work called Involvement and Discussions on Khachaturian Sisters case on Sns Vkontakte, Agenda Polarization Online. Online agenda on domestic violence is highly controversial in Russia. Khachaturian sisters' case has become one of the most salient criminal cases related to domestic violence in recent years. In social networks, clashes of opinion particularly exaggerated, and they become a platform for the most heated debates that go beyond the interpretations of official media. The Khachaturian sisters' case has gradually divided online communities into those who blame the sisters, those who defend them, and those who remain neutral. In February 2017, Russia adopted a law on decriminalization of beatings in the family. The document abolished criminal responsibility for the first incident if it did not result in serious injury. The number of complaints about domestic violence in Moscow increased by 27% after the law was adopted. Khachaturian sisters' case can be described as follows. The sisters killed their father after repeated episodes of physical and sexual violence. In July, the guilt of girl's father, Mikhail Khachaturian, was proved, and the separate criminal proceedings were initiated against him. On the charge of murder committed by a group of people following the premeditated conspiracy, the sisters faced from 8 to 20 years in prison. In Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other large cities, protests and single pickets against the sentence were held. Some activists also have developed a new version of the law about domestic violence in Russia as a response on this situation. Research based on big data show that in social networks, users tend to focus on a limited set of news sources, resulting in the information of audience preferences and specific echo chambers. Certain groups of interests that represent different viewpoints on the same news typically stand behind the audiences. Polarization in social networks has been studied in the context of different issues, such as political ideologies, news consumption, religious views, and so on. Constructing the image of violence in media and CNS is a complex process. In addition to the contradictory interpretation of each case by different actors, it rests on the uncertainty of the concept of harm, since it is necessary to determine how harmful the action must be and in what context it must be done to be qualified as violence. Different media, different online communities do it in different ways. Khachaturian sisters' case has become extremely diverse in terms of the presence of a wide variety of topics, as well as diametrically opposed opinions, attitudes to the situation, and their particular aspects. In our study, as a basic unit of analysis, we used a community in social networking site Vkontakte, vk.com. We consider the community as a special type of media outlet that promotes a certain agenda to a specific audience of subscribers. Based on described issues, we formulate the following research question. The first one, how is the online community landscape structured in the process of agenda building on the Khachaturian sisters case? And the second one, how do the differences in posts affect the level of engagement? We use the data retrieved from Vkontakte because it's the most popular social network in Russia. This statistic was collected by Mediascope. It's a rating presented the popularity in terms of reach different web services, but we do not consider YouTube as a social networking site. So Vkontakte is on the first place among different social networking sites. The dataset collected for the study consisted of the posts which include keywords Khachaturian sisters, taking into account the word forms. From the social network Vkontakte, we used Wiki API to get the data. The base contained all posts published from 27th of July 2018, the moment of committing the crime, to 31st of October 2019. Two peaks can be clearly seen. The first peak is directly related to this event, and the second peak follows the announcement of the final prosecution in the criminal case and the subsequent pickets and meetings. A few words about methods. Network analysis and cluster analysis were performed using custom algorithms developed in Python. Also, series of metrics were calculated in Gephi. We also use content analysis with manual coding to mark up the tone of the post. And also, we use doc2rec and k-means for spam filtering. We've coded manually 50 random posts from each top cluster in order to understand the tone propagated attitudes in clusters. Two raters, Cohen's kappa 0.69. So by clustering the community's landscape using the calculation of common audiences and the overlap distance, we identified the top 10 most significant ideological blocks or clusters and evaluated their activity as well as the levels of audience engagement they provided. These groups of communities work as echo chambers. So there are different ideas and representation of the same event in different clusters. We use positive code in our coding scheme for the posts which contain any advocating or support of sisters, negative code -1 for the posts against sisters, and the revisited version of domestic violence law, 0 for neutral post, 9 for the post we could not classify for any reason, and we index. This index is the mean value of estimates in clusters. At first, we got two proponent cluster with highest index to the first two rows. The first cluster of proponents related to socialists. It is a cluster that combines minor left-wing movements that from communism and socialism to anarchism in some cases. The second proponents cluster is a cluster that links many feminist communities as well as LGBT communities. So we also have revealed two opponents clusters. At first is a cluster Essence of Time. It's called Суть времени in Russian. It's connected with another movement, parental or Russian resistance. It's called Всероссийское родительское сопротивление in Russian. Two movements representing themselves as patriotic left. They are more patriotic than left, if we speak in terms of ideology. They are well known, first of all, from rallies against pension reform and against juvenile justice system. Also, parental or Russian resistance is one of the movements opposing the new version of law on domestic violence developed by activists as a response on this situation. And the last negative cluster is cluster related to masculinism. This cluster represents, by analogy to feminist group, men's movement, including anti-feminism and father's right movements in some cases, and so on. This slide shows how the proportion of activity between different clusters during the news breaks development and the two information wastes in August 2018 and June 2019 changed. The activity of state media communities declined, while private media and feminist cluster were becoming more salient at the second wave. The representation of the Khachaturian sisters case changed by shifting the balance of activity among the most significant blocks and reflecting the official version to polarizing the opinions and activating opponents and defenders of the sisters. In the following calculation, we use engagement rate. A few words about engagement rate as a typical method to estimate the level of engagement, of users' engagement to some posts. We can replace the measure M with different metrics. For example, for Vkontakte, it will be likes, reposts, and comments. So when we divide it on views and multiply it by 1000, we get convenient metrics. This is a weighted metrics, which help us to estimate the level of commenting, liking, and so on. We identified key clusters where discussion about the Khachaturian sisters case were concentrated. Meditainment, talk show, masculinism, socialists and leftists, and private media. Then the clusters socialist, feminism, and essence of time got higher level of weighted likes compared to the other. So we have shown the significant differences between the levels of engagement provided by different types of communities, different clusters in our tape. Our data showed that posts containing opinions against the sisters collected more comments than posts to defend them or neutral texts. We also revealed that neutral posts provide lower level of weighted likes and reposts. We used log scale to normalize the distributions of engagement rate for comments, and also used a cross-Wallace test to verify our comparison. Based on measurements, the intersection of audience and overlap distance, we identified the key clusters in which relevant posts were published. The most significant clusters of online communities landscape were formed based on two key parameters: the type of source, state, private media, mediatainment, etc., and in a broad sense belonging to movement or ideology: feminism, masculinism, communism, and so on. Two main forces in confrontation over Khachaturian sisters case was found on Vkontakte in this research. We discovered that clusters feminism and socialism took special interest in the topic related to rallies and pickets, and also a new version of domestic violence law. They tended to speak up for sisters. In contrast, the masculinism cluster and cluster essence of time argued for the prosecution's position against the sisters, or simply questioned the defenders' reasoning in the context of building a rationale against the revisited law on domestic violence. We identified key clusters of the social network communities where the discussion about the case were concentrated: mediatainment, talk show, masculinism, socialism, and private media. Another type of clusters, such as socialists, feminism, essence of time, got higher level of weighted likes compared to the other. So we have shown differences in engagement between different clusters. We consider this research as work in progress. The full version will be presented at the conference Competitive Media Studies, which will be held in November. We would like to thank our colleagues from the Center for Sociological and Internet Research of St. Petersburg State University for guidance and support. Thank you for your attention.